I have companies reaching out to me about sponsorships and stuff, and I'm always hesitant just to say yes because I don't like feeling indebted
Mm-hmm.
or feeling like I have to,
But it's a mutual
whether it's
thing, you
intended or
know?
not. The thing though about it is it really ever a situation where you're unbiased when a company is asking you to review
Oh,
stuff?
definitely not.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing for me is I don't really want to necessarily be in a position like that. So the way that I've handled sponsorships and whatnot is always like it's always me reaching out to them, and I only reach out to the people that I actually really like and use their products
Oh,
already. And I'm
same.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I use your products. Here's what I'm doing. I can
Yeah.
showcase
It's
how you how your stuff can be used.
mm-hmm.
So it's like it's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for me. The amount of money that you're gonna lose by me not buying products from you because you're sponsoring them
Very
is
little in
not that
comparison.
much,
Yeah. It's so
especially
much cheaper for
considering
them
that
to give you something that, I mean, here's the great thing too. Not only it's very cheap for them to give out things, even though something maybe cost, let's say, for example, $100, it might only cost them like $20 or even less, like
for
value
sure.
wise. And second of all, they can
For
actually
sure.
wite that off. You know that?
Oh
So
yeah,
for
of
lots
course,
of companies that
of
give
course.
out things each year, have they actually have an allocated amount to give out each year because they can write it off as
Yeah,
the values that they're selling it for?
I mean, that's it exactly, you know what I mean? I think it's beneficial to go to college, but it's not beneficial to go to college. For example, like you said, you got a degree in business. Like so did I. They didn't teach me shit about
No.
business there.
Mhm.
They tried to teach me a bit about international trade, but none of that shit even is
And
really like
also, as you say,
relevant.
things get outdated. Like that's why I don't believe a lot of old school marketing class. Like they don't even know what Facebook or Twitter is, and that's a whole
Our
different marketing space.
Well, luckily for me, I was able to actually take like internet marketing and we're talking about like we literally used like Etsy as a case study. So
Hmm.
that was a benefit. But it was this Asian dude who was like our age, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, when
No,
I
but
was
I'm
in
saying
college.
some
He's like
school they have old school material that's like your textbook is 10 years old. You do not even have internet utilized yet.
that's like all of your teachers that go on and on about hospitality.
Uh
What is
huh.
that?
Yep.
What is
Especially
that? That
now.
doesn't exist anymore unless you're at a hotel, right? But so that's the thing for me is like you don't really get a great education, but what you do get is you get critical thinking skills. I think
Hmm.
that's one thing that college does actually help impart on a lot of people. If you teach 5 people how to do something in Photoshop or some sort of technique relating to your photography, right?
Hmm.
And they take those techniques out and then like let's say one of them figures out something really, really fucking cool and comes back to you and says, "Hey, check this out." Dude, that's exponential growth. That means that you're now learning just because you're teaching people.
Hmm.
And you and I, you and I both know, like you're not just teaching 5 people. There's probably going to be 2,000 people that see this over the next couple of years, or if not more, hopefully more,
Hmm.
because that's going to reflect based off of your own success.
Hmm.
But it's like having that opportunity for growth is one of the most beneficial things that people like you and me really can do. It's so funny for me because I learned lighting in a completely different setting than what you learned it in. I learned lighting virtually. I learned setting up light rigs in 3D scenes.
Mm.
Setting up the lights and your background lights and your foreground lights and getting your actual. So all of the lighting in Maya, for example, it's using simulated photons. So
Hmm.
so photon emission, it's just like real lights when it really gets down to it. And so having that background, nothing is more appealing to me when I see somebody that has like a backlight or a fill light that's coming up from below. So they have that nice, tiny little like
Hmm.
bottom illumination on their silhouette, or it's just a hint of it. But you're like, oh, that's nice. Now I
Little
can see
pop.
his actual silhouette, right? I didn't start with 3D printing. You know what I mean? Like I started working with Sintra and I started working with clay sculpting and all that stuff. So I
Hmm.
understand the fundamentals in that regard. It's funny enough that you say that because what I would respond to you, or how I'm going to respond to you, I guess, is, you know, it was taking the fundamentals of prop making. We're talking mold making, resin casting, sculpting, that kind of thing, making a master, making a mold of it and reproducing it for the benefits of strength as well as rigidity and lightness and whatnot, right?
Hmm.
So for me, it was always about chasing where the middle point was, where I could take my background in digital modeling and digital sculpting and be able to utilize that with more of the traditional techniques of mold making and casting and figuring out where that in between was, where that harmony was. Also, keep in mind that included like CNC machining and stuff for vacuum forming and all that. But it's really like if I had to explain who I was, I don't just do 3D modeling. I'm like probably the epitome of like a mixed media applications sort of prop
See,
maker
that's
because I
that's good
use
hard work.
so with Lionheart, for example, though, I remember asking like Yaya and Bill, I was just like, what is it about the costume? And this, I asked them years later, I was like, what was it at TwitchCon that really like got me the win?
Hmm.
And the thing that impressed them more than anything was the mixed media that was used, the different techniques that were used, and how they combined kind of harmoniously. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Uh, and so the other thing, though, we talk about silhouette and we talk about harmony and mixed media. I use mixed media because I think there's a right tool and a right material for specific jobs or specific components. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
3D printing is awesome for certain things, but it's also heavy. It's inherently heavy, even though techniques and technology is evolving to lighten it up. It's still heavier than if you're doing something like vacuum forming or working with foam, right?
Hmm.
And so one of the biggest mistakes I made with Lionheart at TwitchCon was the hands were 3D printed. They were far too heavy. And so you got to see it there. I was able to get my hands in up, but it exhausted me to do that. And so over time, we replaced the hands and put foam stuff in there and did this and did that. And so now, I think my kind of my approach to building costumes is being tested right now with that Make-A-Wish job, the Lich King armor, because the kid that I'm building it for, he's got cancer, or he just finished his treatment. He's in remission. He's in a really good place, but he's incredibly weak, and
Hmm.
so he's got some time to regain some of his strength and whatnot. But I have to make this costume that normally would weigh, let's say, 30 pounds, if not
Oh,
more, which really is not that it's not that much weight for a full
I
suit
doubt.
of armor. But holy crap, I can't put that on his shoulders. He won't be able to walk. He won't even be
Hmm.
able to get up. So I'm starting to kind of try and experiment with different techniques on how I'm going to do it. And so what we're going to do with it, I've got all the 3D models, but rather than 3D printing them, we're either going to 3D print them out of a solid material and then mold and then cast them out of like an expansion foam, or like even
Hmm.
backfill it with like have you seen like the foam clay? My only
Yeah.
fear with foam clay is I think over time it seems to have stability as far as shrinkage, where it shrinks like 3 or 4%. But I
Hmm.
think over time it'll keep shrinking and then degrade and fall apart. So I want this to last forever,
Mm.
or at least as long as it possibly can. So I'm almost thinking to do is, like I said, either mold it and kind of cast it out of material. But I also kind of want to I want to see if I can CNC like thick chunks of EVA foam that it's
Mm.
then skinned and sealed with the material to reinforce it and strengthen it for longevity.
Have you thought about making ebook?
We've talked about doing books for a while, and the problem for me is I hate writing. I
Have
did too
someone
much
else do that
writing.
for you?
I know, but you still got to get the knowledge out of my head. You know what I
True.
mean?
Just
Sometimes
sit
I'm good at
here.
writing. So
Find a person that you can sit down and tell them everything, and then or like record a process of it, and they figure out what to write.
so Tammy, I was like, we need to do a book on 3D printing because like I think my process is very efficient. And that's
Hmm.
something that I think a lot of people get intimidated by, whether it's airbrushing or just cosplay in general. It's when you're working with stuff and you don't know how to work efficiently or effectively, it's exhausting.
And I
And you and I already know cosplay can be incredibly
oh
exhausting.
definitely yeah.
I would say one of my strong suits has always been the fact that I've always been pretty good about breaking topics down into things that are easy to understand
Consumable.
if you don't have background in it. Yeah, exactly, consumable,
Hmm.
or comprehensible, really. And so trying to take some of the more difficult topics that are about business and simplify them in a process where we're not treating people stupid. It's just we're recognizing the fact that if you don't have a foundational background in this, if we talk about it in terms that are what there actually are,
Uh-huh.
oftentimes it goes right over his head.
Yeah. If I
And so
go
we
to anyone and tell them it's like, yeah, like the marginal growth or like or the ROI, they're like,
the
what are you talking about?
GDP. How many people would you say are resistant to experiment and try new things
Most
because
of
they
them.
just think they can suck at it? It's like, what's wrong with sucking at things? At least when you suck, when you know that you suck at something, you know to steer clear of that. And
And
that's that
also, I'm
self-examination.
proud about it too, because like I have already not sucked in other things, so streaming is kind of new to me. I'm more than proud to be like I suck at this because I didn't put in as much time in it than other stuff. So meaning
Yeah,
it's normal. This is fine.
suck less over time. It's an even if you are terrible at something, the fact of the matter is every time you do it, you get a little bit better. As long as you are reflecting on what worked and what didn't. So, all
Yep.
right, I'm getting
All
off.
right, go
I
go
love you,
go.
man.
Love you
Take
too,
care.
man.
If you ever have questions, hit me up. You know the drill.
Say hi to Sammy for
Take it
me.
easy.
Bye.
I will. Bye.